Hello, awesomers. We today are going to discuss finding your personal why, and the result of that should be that at the end you understand what your personal why is and you're able to articulate that not just to yourself but to the people around you and most importantly, your organization. When you get the personal why right, when you understand that big picture why, life becomes a heck of a lot easier. But we'll talk more about that inside, so let's giddy on up. Okay, anytime you do anything anywhere, I always recommend you take responsibility for your results. You're only going to get out what you put in, and nobody else can deliver progress and results for you, and particularly this one, which is so very personal. It's literally your personal why. Why are you doing stuff? So before we dive too deep, remember, why are you here? And this is not a passive watch. This is something that I highly encourage you to take action on. So, giddy up. My name is Steve Simonson. You can go to awesomers.com if you want to find out anything about me and decide if I'm credible or not. Spoiler alert, I'm not. But anyway, this is not the place for a long formal introduction. Just suffice it to say that I love entrepreneurs and I believe the world needs more entrepreneurs. And I do take inspiration from the quote you see on your screen from Zig Ziglar. You can have everything in life that you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. And I truly believe that, and I've found that to be a big part of my happiness and fulfillment over the last 10 years. So that's why I'm doing this. When you think about your company, and again, maybe your company's a little bit different, but this is a common evolution of a company. You get this great idea, and blammo, it hits you just like that bolt of lightning, and you decide, you know what, I'm going all in. I'm going to do something this time. Instead of me just thinking about it, sitting on the sidelines, watching other people do stuff, I'm in. I'm going for it. And that's the birth of a company, isn't it? Over time, you kind of develop into the refinement stages. Sure, I got the idea and I have a general sense of what we're doing, selling, building, servicing, what have you. And that's kind of the infancy. But just think of yourself almost like an infant, or at least the business. Toddlers are falling down, they're walking into walls, they're crying, they're scraping themselves. That's just part of being in business. If you're not prepared to make mistakes, believe me, you're just not prepared. It will happen, and it's okay. So as you put the puzzle together, you kind of develop into that child stage where you realize, hey, something's happening here. This is kind of cool, but there's a little reservation in your mind where you're like, I don't know if this thing is real. I feel very nervous. I'm both excited and terrified at the same time. That's the child stage, and it's a great stage to be in, but just know that it's normal to feel a little afraid as you go through. Then, of course, you get into the, hey, things are happening. That's the teenage years. You're the coolest. You know the most. Nothing could possibly ever go wrong, right? That's how teenagers feel. And that's really when you've overlaid systems into your business and you put people in there to run the systems and you're making progress and positive things happen. It's really fun and one of the most fun times of being in business. And then finally, you kind of hit that adult stage where things are starting to mature. Maybe you're not super clear as to what steps to take in the future. Maybe you have grown from 0 to 30 employees or 300 employees or more, and you're like, this is not as fun anymore. What am I going to do? Should I sell this thing? Should I run as a lifestyle business? Should I hire professional managers to come in and do it? I don't know what to do, but that's the crossroads that all companies hit at some point or another. And I'll tell you, a little pro tip here is, before I start a company, I like to know what the exit is. I want to know the out before I get in. And that's something that I encourage each of you listening to think about, because when you kind of understand that this is not a business that is necessarily a literal child. I mean, despite the fact that I use this history and tried to use these metaphors of birth and infancy, you're actually not raising a child. You're not creating little businesses that you hope that grow up and go to college and develop little grandbaby businesses for you. This is a financial instrument. And so as instructive as it is to see the phases of a business, just understand it's a financial instrument to serve your personal why. And that's really the most important question. And every time I look at this, first of all, the photo cracks me up. But second, I hope it burns that indelible mark in your brain. And it could even be the why. Who would put that on the screen? But why is really the prerequisite to make the rest of your life much, much easier. If you don't know your personal why, if you don't know what you're really striving towards, the rest of it can kind of swing wildly. Yeah, I'm going to go public. Oh, bam, I don't want to go public anymore. Yeah, I'm going to have a laptop lifestyle and live on a beach without electricity. Oh no, I can't charge my laptop. I'm out. Right? You vacillate back and forth, and these kind of corrections and then overcorrections can become problematic. So finding your why is really, really important. And now we're going to take you into the system of finding your why. So again, if you receive this via email, if you got the link to this video in email, you should be able to download the process why from awesomers.com. Finding your personal why, I believe it's called. And the components are very simple. First, you need to know why it's important, and ultimately the purpose of finding your why is to find out what really makes you happy. And when you find that why, that's when the amplification effect happens. That's when you can 10x, because everything will line up. It'll make sense. It'll feel right. And that's what everybody wants. So the foundation is the beginning. Guidance is about, you finding you. It's about getting into it. And again, a pro tip, it's not about how many dollars you have in the bank. It's not how many cars, trucks, jet skis, whatever that you have. While financial security is reasonable and a part of, the big picture, it certainly is not the objective. It doesn't matter how much gold is in your account when you're 6 feet under. Believe me, money is not the most important part. You, in fact, are. So what is going to deliver you happiness and fulfillment and give you a sense of satisfaction of a life well lived? The third part of this is really you have to stick to the process. First, you must make the commitment to engage and get into the process, and then you got to stick with it. It's not easy. It can be a little bit of a grueling journey to find that why, and many times you may have to take a break, but that's okay. And finally, once you do know the why, then you make sure that your business is serving that why. And I know lots of folks, they have a business already, and parts of their business do serve their why, and parts do not. And I highly encourage you to synergize towards the parts that do and discard the parts that do not. You will find much faster happiness and, ironically, faster growth and faster fulfillment towards your goals, both the inner why as well as the financial metrics as well. So the process is deceptively simple in some ways, because it can be very, very difficult. As I alluded to earlier, this is not a early afternoon at Starbucks and knock it out. This is going to take a little bit of time to get it right. So you start out by defining, hey, here's what I don't want. And people say, well, I don't want to wake up and answer to an alarm clock. And so, that's what they don't want. I don't want to answer to the man that, my boss is a real jerk, and I don't want to have to deal with that jerk anymore. I don't want to have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. You define on the things that you don't want, and everybody's got a big list of what they don't want, honestly. That's not hard to come up with. That's why it's a place to start. And then you start getting into, hey, what do you do? What do you want? Well, if you don't want to answer the man with an alarm clock, then you probably want a little more freedom, right? So you take the opposite of what you don't want and you make it into what you do want. If you do want freedom, location independence or what have you, then write that down. That's what you do want. And of course, there may be a series of those things that you do want. In fact, there should be at least as many as what you don't want. The opposite of what you don't want is what you do want. Write it down. And again, the process document takes you in more detail. This is just an overview. And finally, you're going to start prioritizing and figuring out ways to discard the barriers that are in your way. So what I want is freedom, but I'm currently working a 60-hour-a-week job. So how do I reconcile that? How do I break that barrier? And there's different ways of breaking different barriers, and it's unique and independent, unique for everyone. It's not independent. Nevertheless, the point is you define what you don't want, you define what you do want, and then you prioritize what you're going to go after first and eliminate those barriers. Finally, once you kind of narrow it down to your top 4 or 5 things that you do want, you don't have to start with getting it all right. Then you can synthesize down to your why, which is essentially 2 to 3 sentences that will articulate your entire why. And when you read it, not only should it energize you, it should resonate with you. And many people have a physical reaction to it. They get goosebumps or their body shudders. They're like, wow, this is totally me. That's what I want. That's what makes me happy. And damn the consequences, everything else gets out of the way until I get this thing done. It can be a great source of motivation and focus for your entire life. And I do want to say this, that over time your why can change, right? When I was 20, my why was different than when I was 30, and it's evolved again since I was 30 to when I was 40, nearly 50. The point is, don't expect your very first run at it to have the final lifelong answer. But the main components and underpinnings of my why have not changed, in fact. So let's break it down. What you don't want is often a result of the things that we tell ourselves we just have to suck up and move it, right? Hey, cupcake, suck it up and move on. And there's some of it that we will have to do that. But what I don't want people is to do it for too long. If you hate bookkeeping, only do it as long as you have to do it, no longer. Don't think of this as a forced march or some sort of martyr situation where you have to take the pain and it'll pay off later. No, do it only until you don't have to do it anymore. Because once you get that off your agenda, you're going to find the opportunities to actually use the time of the things you're good at and where your strengths are based to do more and to make more progress on the more important things. And there's people who love to do bookkeeping or spreadsheets or report writing or customer service or whatever the case may be. So that's easy on what you don't want, right? You think about them, you kind of rank them and imagine your life without some of these things, and then you decide how to overcome some of these things. So then we talk about, hey, what do you want, right? Well, gosh, I really want the freedom, or I want to be happy when I wake up in the morning instead of feeling like I'm absolutely up against it. And I don't want people to think that they are boxed into these situations they find themselves in forever. You can, in fact, change how things are. And when you eliminate the superficial concepts of money or bling or I have to have the fanciest car or the coolest house or whatever it is, over time you can live a more fulfilling life. Really, those things are not satisfying in the long run. So that's the kind of what you do want. And a little pro tip again on establishing what you do want. When you think about the things that make you the most happy, of course we all like sales, new sales records or things like that. But you really think about the idea of, I solved this problem and I really like that. Or some people do love spreadsheets. I personally am not a huge fan, but maybe that really makes you happy. I want to be sure that you don't pen yourself into some of those topics, those processes for long term. Sometimes we're like, well, I'm an expert CPA, so I'm going to do my own books forever. Cool, you're capable. That's not the question. But is that the best use of your time, and does that lead you to your personal why long term? So don't forget that even when you do want certain things, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't delegate that downstream. Okay, once you have written down the things you don't want, then you get the opposite of what you do want. Then you just need to kind of prioritize those things, and you really do break it down into 4 to 5 things that you want to get done. And I really want to reinforce the fact that if you allow things that create clutter in your life or noise, like watching the news or becoming obsessed with politics or other things that really you have no control over and they only serve to annoy and create problems, then you're going to have a harder time focusing on your why. I really, really encourage people to just fly above all that noise for a little bit and decide what's the most important things to you. And by the way, eliminating the work you hate to do is in fact okay. A lot of times entrepreneurs are so willing to just sacrifice and beat ourselves down that we don't say, you know what, this part of the job I don't like, and so I need somebody to do that for me. Ironically, people love to do the things you hate to do. I could give you countless examples of my team and things that I just absolutely hate, and it makes them the happiest to dive into minutia that I absolutely dislike. So the point is, if you take inventory, if you define what's important to yourself, you can break through whatever barriers have stood in your way and you can get closer to your why. Okay, so once you kind of have all of those pieces of the puzzle put together, then your mission is to really get to the final point, which is to articulate your why in just a 2 to 3 sentences. And as you start writing it down, you get rid of the redundancy, and you kind of experiment with the things that really should cause a physical reaction to you. When you get this right, you're going to be excited about it. You're going to want to tell people about it. And again, it's not that you need to go read your personal why to them, but of course, your spouse is fine, or your kids, or your business partners, or whatever. But they'll understand that, I see this person's why is related to this, and no matter how they relate to you, whether they are part of your family or friends or your business, they'll know that, gosh, if me, I'll use myself as an example, if Steve's really interested in a freedom lifestyle, then asking him to invest or start a business is going to take him 80 hours a week to work, probably not super compatible. And these things will start to weed themselves out over time. And finally, when you get this statement right, it should provoke a reaction inside you. Your body should feel it. Your gut should go, yeah, this is me. And until you feel that, keep going. Okay, once you get it right, these are the results you should start to expect, honestly. And that's anytime you do a process or a system, you should know what the expected results are before you start. Otherwise, it's not a system. It's just some process that people blindly follow. If you make a system, write down the results that you expect to get up front. So here's some of them that we've seen. First of all, when you have a better view of your own personal place in the world, your own strengths, your self-image is better, and everybody around you sees you in a better light. Just naturally, it just happens. As those behaviors and the perceptions around those, your view of the world will actually improve. You'll stop focusing on things that are unimportant and perhaps not part of your long-term why, right? I haven't watched the news in years. I don't think I'm missing anything. I'm far, far happier as a result of it. I don't listen to talk radio that gets me whipped up into a lather and then I can do nothing about it. I just carry on living, and I hang out with entrepreneurs and people that I care about and people that are making a positive impact on the world, and my life is better as a result. Yours can be too. When you get rid of all that noise, man, the ideas come flowing, and ideation is absolutely a result of having your why. You'll know what you want, and you'll think of many, many more ways to get there and to build on it. And then as you start that flywheel turning, as they talked about in the book Good to Great, the perpetual motion of that flywheel creates its own momentum, and it carries you forward, sustains you. And in fact, when you get the answer to your why, that's the most crucial building block in my view. But it's just the start of the journey, right? It's not the end of the journey. And finally, when you have it right and you feel good and all these things are happening, other people around you will go, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but I want some of that. What is it all about? And then you can share and bring them into the finding your why circle. It really is important. Okay, so everybody gets caught up in this idea. Well, so and so did it like this, and such did it like that, and they compare themselves to others. And I'm just saying, don't get distracted. There are in fact no wrong answers. And because we've gone, somewhat long here, I'm not going to waste your time. The point is, it doesn't matter if you're looking at IPO or having your own personal helicopter, retire on the farm, or live on a beach. Whatever it is, there's no wrong answers. It's your why. It's whatever you want it to be. Don't get caught up in the minutia, and just think about what's best for you. And then once you have that down, you'll be in a position to help everybody else around you. When you get it right for you, instead of grinding yourself down at both ends and having really nothing left over, you got to get you right. You got to focus on getting you right. When you have that why, it'll get there. So trust the process. Don't give up. It is tough, tougher for others. It was very tough for me. It took me well over a year to get it right. And in fairness, I probably, like many of you, wasn't convinced that it would have an impact. Once I finally got over the threshold, man, oh man, I wish I didn't waste the time. And so I hope that you guys take that experience and carry it forward. And I thank you very much for joining us. You can go to awesomers.com. We'll post some stuff. We don't sell you stuff. We're easygoing guys, and we love entrepreneurs. Take it easy. My name's Steve Simonson, and I love you. Bye-bye.